Dubai, in Saudi Arabia, Pakistan, Turkey. We have a lot of centers delivering the computer-delivered IELTS. A very small group of people take it, about 24 people at the same time, and you can take it in many centers twice a day, 6 days a week. So it might be easier as well for you to get an appointment and sit the test finally. Yeah, so check it out locally. Pakistan is not running yet. I'm just looking at IO. It's coming hopefully next month. So that's October. Oh, there is a few centers already, but there's maybe more coming in the future. Yeah. So good point. Yes. Can we answer a Y for yes, Victor? Yes, you can. That is completely fine. Yeah. Good. So hopefully I've answered your questions there on that computer delivered listening, which is the main difference. And I'm going to move on to writing task 1. Yeah. Now, I just want to check as well. Aya was so kind to put up the link again to our Dropbox. In the email you received, you should have received a link to that Dropbox to download a booklet. There is a lovely booklet, IELTS Focus, General Training Writing Task 1. And if you haven't downloaded it yet, please go back at the end of the webinar. We might use it during the webinar, but if you haven't got a chance to do it now, make sure you do it later, because it's really useful for you to read through before you go to the test, just to refresh your mind and put the dots on the I. Right, so in that booklet, if you do have that available and readily downloaded, I'm going to go to page 4, and I've got lots of questions for you about IELTS writing. Now, if you don't have the booklet, I hope it's clear enough on the screen. I cannot guarantee, because it's always a bit small when you watch it on your mobile phone or when you watch it on your tablet. The booklet is not opening, Hamid. Try again. It's a PDF, so you need Adobe to download it. Computer delivered IELTS, Mian, it's still checked by, I don't want to call it a teacher, by an examiner. Of course, the listening and the reading can be checked by the computer. However, it's still manually checked as well by a person to make sure that the computer didn't make any mistakes. Yeah, and it's done by different people who are involved for the listening and the reading. It's never the same person who checks your work. So, good. So here are some questions for you. On page 4 and 5 in your handbook, I'm going to give you 5 minutes, if you have downloaded that booklet, to have a look through it. You can type up some answers in the chat box if you want to. If not, just go through it on your own, and then we talk about the answers in a minute of 5 and see if you have any questions for me about that. Yeah, so go to page 4 and 5. In your booklet, question 1 till 20, what do you think? Nadia, what would you like me to say again? What you need to do? Page 4 and 5 in your handbook, that link that is in the chat box, download that, have a look at it, and see what answers you think are correct. So see what you already know about this. Good, I see some answers coming in already. Lovely. Adatun, I don't know why you can't open it. It keeps saying invalid format. Below, you can write the answers in your booklet or you can type a few up in the screen, completely up to you. I'm going to show you my answers in a minute and then we can have a chat about that. Pencil, I think that's the right answer. Virginia, 60 minutes, beautiful. Good, some questions as well. Question 10, good. Lovely. I'm going to move you on slowly so you can check your answers with my next slide. So here we go. There's a lot of numbers there. Have a look and I talk you through a few. I think somebody asked about question number 10. Good. So indeed, I'm going to talk about question number 3. How many words do you need to write for task 1? That is 150 words. And somebody asked, is the examiner going to count all my words? Now, if it looks very short, in the past we used to count all your words, but we're no longer counting all the words because you do not get directly penalized anymore for writing less than what you're supposed to write, 150 words. However, if you write less, the problem is that you're probably not fully answering the question, you're not giving enough evidence or detail or examples. So please keep working on providing about 150 to 170 words. Yeah, Afis, indeed, a minimum of 150 is still what we recommend. Isabel, well done for having all your answers correct. Lovely. Yeah, so word count is still important because you need that sort of words to actually answer the questions. Nevanari, yeah, very good question. How do I know that I've got enough words? Now, I wouldn't say count every word, but start counting how many words you've got in one line. If that's 10 words, I would say go to 15 to 17 lines. So you meet it exactly. You start counting from the first word in the letter, which is often dear sir or madam or dear Anna, yeah, till the last word, which might well be your name when you sign off. So that's all included. Yeah. Now, of course, we suggest you spend 20 minutes on your writing task 1. Why? Purely because it's much shorter than your writing task 2. You need to write 250 words. So we suggest that you take 40 minutes to write about that. You have to do both tasks as well, question 8. Of course, if you really have no time and you spend all your time in writing task 1, it's your choice, but it's not going to help you to get a good bench score because, like question 9 states, task 1 counts for 33.333% of your answer, and task 2 counts for 66.6% of your total bench score. So you need both to do well. Yeah, so I really recommend you spend your time wisely. 40, 20, or maybe 45, 15 if you're a quick letter writer. Yeah? Now, in number 10, you need to give that factual information from the context, the prompt you get given. So there's a problem, you need to use that information to express your purpose of writing. You also often are asked to express what you want, what you need, what your problem is. And you might have to express your opinion. Yeah, I want this to be solved by tomorrow morning. I need this and this. I suggest you do that and that. So actually, 10, all of the above. Answer D. Now, question 14, all the marking criteria I'm going to talk about later, so don't worry too much about those ones. 17, you get given a pencil if you take the paper-based exam. You need to write the answer with that pencil. There's an eraser and there is a pencil sharpener there for you. If you write on the computer, of course, you type your answers with the keyboard, but you still get a pencil and some paper to take notes on if you want to. Yeah. Now, correct spelling, number 18, really important. Spelling is very important. If there are too many spelling mistakes, that might actually drop your bench score in a lexical resource. If your spelling mistakes impact the meaning, that often makes me stop you at the bench score 5 for lexical resource. I don't think you have, Ali, a choice which pencil you want to use. You get given a pencil by IDP in the testing room. So sorry, Ali, you can't bring in your magic pen. You've got to write with what you get given there. I'm going back to number 18. So correct spelling, important. Punctuation, very important. When I speak about punctuation, think about full stops and appropriate use of commas. Don't worry too much about columns, semicolon. No, that's not something we use an awful lot in writing. It's really showing me that you know when to use the comma, which we often do with certain linking words, right? However, if it's in the middle, you've got a comma at either side. If it's the start of a sentence, you get a comma afterwards. If you start your sentence with because, you get a comma at the end of that first clause. So really focus on punctuation, on commas and full stops. That's really important for us to see. Capital letters are not penalized in your writing task at the moment. But please, if you can, show me good practice, show me appropriate use of your lowercase and your uppercase. Yeah, because your handwriting can be a bit funny. So we're saying, okay, it's not a problem. But after a while on the computer, you have actually no excuse to use a lowercase if you should use an uppercase letter. Yeah, so please try to do your best there, although it's not directly penalized in the writing test. Prepositions, Nadia, please elaborate a bit more because I don't know what you want to ask. Ali, the percentage of importance between writing task 1, 33% of your total bench score, writing task 2, 2/3, so 66.666%. So actually, writing task 2 is more important. Oh, Amrita, running handwriting. I think you might want to use cursive handwriting. Is that the word you're looking for? You can write in cursive, you can write in print, as long as I can read it. That's completely fine. Prepositions, Nadia, they're tricky ones. You need to study up on verbs plus dependent preposition because that is important to get a good score in your lexical resource if you use that accurately. Yeah? Good. I don't think there were any other numbers that you requested. So I'm going to move you away. Question 10, Kahinda, I already talked about. You need to do all those things. So that factual information is the information you get given about the problem or the issue you need to write about. That's what you write about. You need to express sometimes what you like or dislike, what you want, your opinion, what you want out of the letter, the results. And so it's actually 10D, all of the above. High vocabulary, Bila, you want to use sophisticated vocabulary to get a bench score 8 or above. So when I look at that language, I would say upper intermediate advanced language. So a really good book that you could get is Cambridge. I think it's called Vocabulary for IELTS. There's an intermediate book and there is an advanced book from Cambridge, Vocabulary for IELTS. Really useful. Yeah. So I think high, Dafinone, he means maybe more sophisticated, advanced vocabulary. Yeah. Good. So I'm going to move you away. In the letter, you can still use that sort of language if it's a formal letter in particular. Yeah. Let's go and talk about those assessment criteria in a minute. Good. Here we go. Question for you then, before I go into more detail about high vocabulary. What are the marking criteria the examiners are using to assess your IELTS Writing Task 1? One of the criteria we look at, of course, is vocabulary. What else? Can you just show me in the chat box what you think the examiner would look at in your piece of writing? Great. Sentence structures, grammar, answering a question either, indeed, task response, yeah. Use of words, the appropriate format, a very important one. Lexical resource, lovely, lots of good ideas. This, of course, is also in your booklet. So let me show you what we are looking for when we assess a piece of writing. I'm trying to get it up. It's a bit slow here. So we need task achievement. And the task achievement has to do with the fact, have you actually fully answered the question? Have you done what we wanted you to do? Is your format there? Is the purpose clear? Are you covering those 3 bullet points? And is your style or tone appropriate for that letter? Yeah. Then we go to cohesion and coherence. That actually comes down to the fact, have you organized your ideas and information logically? Is it easy for me to follow? Does it flow? You always start with a what, then you might give me the issues, then you might give me some suggestions for solutions, and then you might write an ending to your letter. So is it structured in a way that makes sense to the reader? Yeah. And then another 25% of your score is based on lexical resource, the language you use. Have you got a variety of vocabulary there? Do you use synonyms? Yeah. Maybe you use some idiomatic expressions. And also, are you able to play with word formation rightly? So do you use a noun when you need to use a noun? And do you use the adjective when you need an adjective? Yeah. Good. So yes, cliches like this essay put a notion with regard to the question. I probably wouldn't use that sentence, Jaroslav, but cliches, some people say as well, are little things like due to the fact that, as a result of. I don't think that is a problem at all, but it's most important that the language that comes after that chunk of language also is of good quality and good standards. If the language that comes after your cliche is wrong and incorrect grammar and funny words, then very easily we see this is not really your level. You've just been able to memorize these chunks of language. Yeah, so it's good to use some of those fixed expressions that you practice with, but what comes after that is really important as well. Lexical resource. Nadia, you need indeed here to show us that you can use verbs with dependent prepositions correctly, but even more important, phrasal verbs, because we use them when we write informal letters. Even more important, collocations. Certain words go together more than others. Remember, we say heavy rain, we don't say strong rain. So to show me that you know which words collocate or match together, that shows me that you have a good mastery of the English language. And for a band score 7 or above, that becomes very important. The other thing I look at in lexical resource, can you be precise? So instead of talking about something, someone, stuff, things, can you say exactly what you need? A solution, the name of a job. So be precise in your noun choices, but also be precise in your verb choices. Words like do, go, find, they're very generic. Can you use another word to show me that you have more specific language available? You can say, do your homework, but you could also write, what could you say for do your homework? What other more advanced, specific vocabulary could you use? Feel free to type that in the chat box if you want. To do your homework could also be something like to complete, oh lovely, Salva, Virginia, to complete an assignment. Yeah, to finish your assignment, something like that, to write your assignment. Good, to finish a task or to complete a task is even nicer. So you see, this language is what we're looking for. We want to avoid those generic nouns and those weak verbs, as we call them. Yeah? Now, going back to idioms, you were asking about that before. I would say idioms we normally use when we talk, not so much when we write. You might use a few, but it's not as common. So you might use something like it costs me an arm and a leg, which means something is very expensive. But in writing, we more commonly use idiomatic expressions. So Vladimir, like you mentioned before, there are those chunks of language that you can chuck in your writing and then finish off. Yeah? So idioms, not as much as fixed expressions, phrasal verbs, and collocations, and precise language. Good. Moving you on to grammar, and this is another thing. You might want to take some notes here. Grammatical range and accuracy. When you speak about grammatical range, what do you think of? Can you type that into the chat box? What does that mean to you? Tenses, articles, subject-verb agreement, complex sentences, wafa, lovely. Range of sentence structures. Variety of grammar, Bazad, yes. Paraphrasing that, Abdulani, that is probably more part of lexical resource in your synonyms, but indeed, it's very important, yes. Error-free sentences, good. Adverb, adjectives, adverbs, good. So grammatical range, there's two things we need to distinguish. The first thing I look at is at sentence level, what sort of grammar you have used. Have you used a simple structure? Have you used a perfect structure, present perfect maybe, past perfect, or have you used a continuous structure, ing? So that's sort of the basic thing we look for, because some are harder than others to use, and have they been used appropriately? Then I also look, of course, have you maybe used a conditional or a relative clause? Honestly, that is such a useful tool, those relative pronouns. Practice using those because they help your cohesion and coherence as well. Have you maybe used a gerund? Swimming is my favorite hobby or something, ing again. Have you used something like a conditional, or maybe a passive, or maybe modal verbs, because they're also very important. What you notice is that band scores 8 and 9 can play with that language very flexibly. Yeah, so it has to be used correctly and in the right context, of course, but that's very useful, particularly for your writing task, to those modal verbs. Yeah. The other side from grammatical range and accuracy, I'm looking, Anna Banti, at indeed simple sentence, subject, verb plus idea, full stop. Have you got a compound sentence where you combine two independent clauses, or do you also use complex sentences where you use words like because, however, whereas, and whilst? That is really useful language to show that you can make a compound sentence. And if you want a higher band score than band score 4, you need to show me compound and complex structures. Even if everything you write is in a simple structure, 100% correct and clear, your grammatical range and accuracy stops at a band score 4 because you're not showing me anything compound or complex. Yeah. Now, what is more important, range or accuracy, Morteza? I think it's very difficult to say in the IELTS because they're both equally important. But of course, think about the errors that people make. You know, if there are too many errors and it becomes confusing, then I might not be able to give you a higher band score than a 6. If there are more errors than I like, I might have to drop you down to band score 5. So I think they're both important. Amrita, contractions, we don't use in formal writing, but you could use it in your letter writing. But I usually say to students, you know, just write it without contractions, because that is normally what you expect in exams. But it's fine in letter writing. In task 2 as an essay, I wouldn't use it. Go for writing it out in full. Yeah? A compound structure, Kehinda, is where you have two independent sentences that you link. I like eating hamburgers and I also like eating biscuits, for example. So there are two sentences that you can have separately without that word and. Yeah? While as a compound sentence is where that's a compound sentence, whereas this complex structure, I cannot have that standing there independently. Because we were late, we missed the train. We were late, cannot stand on its own. You need because, it can't stand on its own. So that would be a complex structure. Type it in on Mr. Google and they will give you lots of ideas. Yeah? And your linking words, Afis, that goes back to your cohesion and coherence. Cohesion is how do you stick with glue? How do you glue your sentences and your paragraphs together? Coherence is when you read it, does it flow? Is it logically ordered? Do you go from what's the problem to explaining your problems to what do you demand, for example, as a solution? Yeah, so I hope that helps. So all of these count for 25%, and that gives you a total band score for your writing task 1. And that goes together with your writing task 2 into the computer, and then an overall band score comes out. Good. Now, you've probably seen this before, even online maybe. You can go to Mr. Google and download it, or on page 9 in your booklet, you have the writing task 1 band descriptors. Now, I'm not going to talk tonight a lot about grammatical range and accuracy, lexical resource, or cohesion and coherence, because we just don't have the time. I want to focus on task achievement with you. So we're going to look mainly at that first column. Yeah. Good. So before we go into explore that, let's have a look at an example of a task you could get for writing task 1. Isra, if you speak about cohesion, think about the word cohesive, glue, things that stick together. So how do you stick your sentences together? What linking words do you use? What cohesive devices do you use? For example, pronouns, this, it, both. Coherence has got to do with if I read it, does it flow? Is it logically ordered what you write? Because the reader has an expectation of the what first, and then maybe some more details, and the what do you want in a letter later on. Yeah, so I hope that explains that a bit. Here we go. You have got a beautiful example here of a, I think, formal letter. Yeah. How do we know that this is a formal letter? What tells you it's a formal letter? Type it in the chat box if you have any ideas. How do we know it's formal, because I've labeled it as a formal letter, but do we know, Mutwa? I think we know who it's to. Yes, indeed. It is to the company manager, Wellington. Well done, Salwa. Good. So what you need to do is very carefully read that little bit of text underneath the context. I've put the context into orange today, so you can very clearly see what we're going to talk about. And underneath the orange text, you can see who you need to write to. Yeah, so I think the first thing in writing task 1 for you is to find, who am I writing to? Is it somebody I know? Informal. Is it somebody I don't know? So then indeed, we don't know, unknown person, it's going to be a formal letter. Yeah? So your situation is in orange, your instructions, who you're going to write to, are underneath that, and then the content of your letter is your 3 bullet points. Yeah? So here you can see you've got to write at least 150 words, you've got your 20 minutes, and if it's a formal letter, we suggest you're going to start your letter with dear sir or madam, comma. Yeah? Now don't ask me, can I write dear Mr. Smith? Can I write dear Mr. Ayer? You can write whatever you want, but I think the best thing is to approach this effectively. Dear sir or madam is never wrong. Put it there, comma, and start thinking about the rest, because the rest is where the body paragraphs, that's where you're going to show me your language. Muad, we wouldn't write that with I was going to say a hyphen, a slash. No, maybe on your telephone, but not in reality. Dear sir or madam, comma. Yeah. If it's already on paper, very easy. But just copy that, what we have shown you on the slide here. Yeah? So look at your situation, read the instruction and find out who you're going to write to, and then look at the content, because that tells you what your purpose of that letter is going to be as well. Yeah? I would write it in full, dear sir or madam, very easy. Don't think about it. If it's formal, that's a very nice start of your letter. Dear sir, you could do as well, or dear madam, whatever you like, but no slash. Dear sir slash madam, no, we don't use that when we write. Yeah? Good. The next one is an example of an informal letter. So again, you have to have a look at your situation. I've put that in orange for you. Then you need to look at the instruction. Who are you going to write to? In this case, it's a friend, so that means it's an informal letter. And an informal letter, I would just start with dear, maybe Nadia, maybe Ayo, maybe Anna, whatever name you want to put in there. Keep it simple. Don't think too much about it. And then again, you need to read very carefully the bullet points, because they tell you the content and the purpose of the letter. Ali, what about writing to whom that may concern? We would probably say to whom it may concern. To whom it may concern. It's a bit old-fashioned, but you can still use it. But I think it's much easier and less issues with language if you write dear sir or madam. But this to whom it may concern is not for your friends. It's for a formal letter, if that's what you want to use. But it's a chunk of language you have remembered, so it's not going to impress me much as your own language. Yeah, so keep it simple. Do something where you cannot make any mistakes in. Oh gosh, that's long names you've got there. Do not worry about the address. You don't need to write the address. Yeah. Good. Nadia, I'll talk about the end of the letter later with you. Yeah. Good. So here again, you see 3 bullet points. Yeah. Now be very aware when you read it of any plural s's and any words like and. Yeah, because here we're talking about 4 bullet points, actually, secretly, because you have to recommend the best time of year to visit and why that is the best time to visit. Yeah, if you don't talk about the why, you're not really addressing that bullet point. Also, look at the second bullet point. Describe the types of accommodation your friend could choose. So it's not good enough if you only write about one type of accommodation. Yeah? So you need to be very careful. Look for words like and, or, and plural s's. Highlight those so you know what you need to address. Yeah? And ideally, indeed, Murad, we try to say write a paragraph for each bullet point, but sometimes that doesn't work because the paragraph becomes so short, and then you could merge them together. But if possible, yes, you can have one paragraph for each bullet point, but try to give an equal amount of detail as well for each bullet point. So you don't get one that's got 50 words while the other one has got 10 words. Below, is cutting allowed in writing tasks? You might have to rephrase cutting because I'm not really sure what you mean. You don't get scissors during the exam, as far as I know. So rephrase it for me, please, so I can answer it. Yeah? Good. So these are the two task types. I bet you are sort of familiar with these, what they look like. Yeah? So I'm going to hand over to you. I can give my voice a rest and you can think a little bit there. I've got 6 questions about writing task 1. Have a think, use the chat box and type your answers into the chat box whenever you're ready. I'm going to give you 3 minutes. Striking the words. You mean if you make a mistake, can I cross out the words? I think that's what you're after, Bilal. Is that correct? So yes, just cross it out neatly. That's fine. Don't worry about it. But make clear that it's not a word you want us to read. So 2 fat lines through it is completely fine. Yeah, so these questions are also on page 11 in your booklet if you've managed to download that. So scribble your answers on page 11, type it in the chat box. I'm going to be quiet for 2 minutes and give you some thinking and typing time. I really enjoy reading your responses. That's so nice because it's a bit lonely normally when you sit in a room during this. Great. Good. Let's go through it. And if you have any questions while we go through the answers, type that in for me as well, please. Yeah. So here we go. Why should you spend about 20 minutes on that task? Well, it's probably because you get more points for your writing task 2. So we need you to be focused on your writing task 2 because that's about 66% of your total score. So we want you to divide your time according to the weighing of the marks. And I think a lot of you said that makes complete sense. Yeah, now some people spend a bit more time on writing task 2 because they find it easier to write that letter. That is up to you. It's not a must. It's just advice for you. Yeah? Second question, what important elements must be included when you write a letter? That's a lovely picture for you, and hopefully that clarifies how you build up your letter, how many paragraphs you maybe get. Yeah, so your salutation, of course, is your dear sir or madam or dear IO, for example, your body might be your 3 paragraphs if you have enough to talk about your 3 bullet points in a separate paragraph. And then your closing would be that 1 sentence at the end where you say yours faithfully or yours sincerely. Yeah, so that's actually the structure, and that is always the same in a letter. Here we go. And then, of course, how can you begin and end a letter? Begin a letter that's formal with dear sir, comma, dear madam, comma, dear sir or madam, comma, dear Mr. Smith, whatever you want. Yeah, just think about that comma at the end. But there is one thing we do not like to see, dear ma. That is something that is maybe localized English. You would never get that in the UK, in Australia, or in the US. That is not seen as appropriate language in the letter writing. Yeah, the same as ma'am, sir. I know I can hear it a lot around me. It's completely fine when you address people like that, but in a letter you would never write dear ma'am, sir. Just stick with what we talked about. Good afternoon, Mohammed. I wouldn't start a letter with that. That's maybe what you would write in your email or when you send me a text message. Just start with dear sir or madam. Yeah, keep it simple. Save your brain to think about the content later on. And then finishing off, yours faithfully, yours sincerely, or maybe even yours truly. Now, can I just point out, if you copy this into your booklet, I don't like the fact that faithfully and sincerely are written with a capital letter. That is no longer necessary. Now, it's not penalized, but I might as well spell it out for you. So that can be a lowercase f and a lowercase s. Some people also write yours truly, which is also fine. It's an American expression, which I think is becoming much more common nowadays. Dear madam, and then indeed a comma, Girish, well done. Yeah, good. So when you sign off informally, you would probably write best wishes, best regards, kind regards. And again, I would not use the capital R for regards. So this has sneaked into it, but it's no longer necessary. That was maybe in the past. So lowercase is completely fine. Best wishes is a nice example there. Yeah, and again, dear Nadia, your name is here, comma after that name, so you show me correct punctuation. Good. What else have we got? Why is it important to make that purpose clear in your letter? Oh, no, I've got something else for you. This is also in your booklet on page 17. Yeah, so you don't need to copy this slides, but it's on page 17. So you can actually see what we can do there for openings and closings, for formal and informal closing. Friends forever, Anna, is a very nice thing to say, but I would maybe say it to school or girlfriends, but I wouldn't really write it in an informal letter. I mean, it's nice to say, but let's say don't do that in your letter in the IELTS exam. Yeah. That booklet, Abdul, is the PDF that IO has sent the link to in the email and also in the chat box. Yeah, so make sure that you download that. Go back to your email, you can find it there. Good, I'm moving on. Why is it important to make that purpose in your letter clear? Let's have a look there, what it's going to say. The reader, the examiner in this case, needs to understand why you are writing and what you want the reader to do. Yeah, so that purpose of writing is really important. Why? Do you have a problem? Do you have advice? Do you have a request? What do you want the reader to do is at the end of your letter, yeah, what do you want from me? Do you want a free meal? Do you want to change rooms? Do you want me to book your flights? So that is really the core of your letter, the why and the what. Yeah. Last question, what happens when you don't write 150 words? Like I said before, you're probably not fully developing the answer as all of you typed into the chat box. So it's really important to stick with 150, 170, so you can develop that answer and give us sufficient detail in your answer. I'm recommending you don't write a lot more because it takes time, but also all the mistakes you make in those extra words, they are counted towards your score. So you might make more mistakes, and that might bring you down to a band score 6 or maybe even 5 if there are too many spelling or grammatical errors in there. Yeah? Informal bukola, best wishes, we would normally say. Yeah, it's very informal in an email that some people write best, but we don't really see that a lot. Best wishes, Anna. Yeah? Mohammed, don't count all your words. Count how many words you've got in a line. If that's 10 words, you've got to write about 15 to 17 lines for me, because we don't want to waste that time on that. Yeah? So very good question. So, good. So task achievement, I'm going to move you on to that first column that the examiner checks in your written work, because we've noticed that that's where we've got quite a few issues with learners not fully meeting the criteria. So let's have a look what 4 things are absolutely essential for you to show the examiner in your task achievement. So here is your question. Go to page 9 in your booklet, have a look at those bullet points and see if you can give me 4 essential elements you need to show the examiner to get a good band score there. Indeed. Appropriate tone, format, bullet point. Wow, I'm very happy that you write all those things down. So let's have a look then what we've got coming up. 1, 2, 3, 4, here we go. So indeed, format. When I talk about format, we're talking about the form of a letter. Yeah, so you're writing an opening, your body paragraphs, and your closing. So it's a connected text. There is no bullet points in there, and you have sentences organized into paragraphs. That is what format means. It's not an essay with an introduction and conclusion. It looks like a letter. Purpose, you must very clearly express why you are writing this letter in the introduction. Yeah, so after your dear sir or madam or dear Anna, you write why you are writing that letter. That's really important for the examiner to check, because if that's not in your letter, it's not very clear what you want to achieve. Yeah. Bullet points. Now, those bullet points here, the 3 that we looked at before, you need to answer all your bullet points if you want to satisfy the requirements. So if it's 3 bullet points and you only write about 2, you're not going to do very well in task achievement, because you're not fully satisfying all the requirements. And again, what I said before, read very carefully in the bullet points for plural S's and words like and, because secretly sometimes there's actually 4 things that you need to do, but they're written in 3 bullet points. And like you already said, your tone and your style. If it's a formal letter, you need to write formal language. You're not going to write, hey bro, how's it going? No, it's a formal letter, you write formal. If it's an informal letter to a friend, you can be a bit more like, oh, long time no see, or something like that. Yeah, we're going to talk about those in more detail. Anna, I would say 150, 170 max. You can write as many words as you like to, because the examiner will check every single word that you write, but the risk is that you make more mistakes, and that is not needed. Shakir, you can choose what you like to do first, task 1 or task 2. It's completely up to you. In the paper-based and computer delivered, you get both tasks at the same time, and you choose what you want to do. Yeah, I normally suggest that with writing task 2, because that is harder, more thinking, your own ideas, your own language. However, some people like to do writing task 1 first, because it's confidence building, because it's a bit easier. You choose what works best for your brain. Yeah, so up to you. Eniola, ideally you write a similar amount about each bullet point. Oh, Ida, that was your question. Yeah, so don't write 50 words about one and then 20 about the other. Keep it a little bit balanced. And Yola, monitoring the time during the exam, I know that's very difficult, but there's a clock in the room that you're able to see. And I think most important at home is that you practice with yourself and you give yourself 2 minutes or 3 minutes to read the task, make some notes on the task paper. 2 minutes to write your opening and introduction, purpose of writing. Maybe you give yourself 9 minutes to write the body paragraphs and another 2 minutes to close it off and quickly check all your spelling mistakes, for example. So that's something you have to do yourself, and based on practice, that will become easier. Practice with a clock next to you at home. Yes, and Ali, if you're not writing about all those bullet points that are in there, in the letter that you have to write, in the task that's given to you, you're not fully answering the question. Let's go back to that in a minute, if you don't mind, because I'm going to show you a task later on, and we're going to look at the bullet points, the task items that you need to do. Yeah, so task achievement, this is what we're talking about. And I'm going to go back to that first column and we're going to look at format before we look at bullet points. Yeah, so stay with me. Neutral words, Mortez, are completely lovely, elaborate, very nice, sophisticated language. Could use it in an informal letter, but think about your tone as well. I'm going to elaborate on this, and let me tell you a little bit more. Might be better in informal, because elaborate is quite a formal word, right? Good. Format. Let's have a look then. What have we got for you? I think you need to go to your booklet in a minute again for me. So here is a prompt for you. Your local public library wants to make improvements to their services and facilities. In order to get ideas from the public, they have asked library users to send them suggestions in writing. Write a letter to the librarian. In your letter, describe what you like about the library, say what you don't like, and make suggestions for improvement. Good. Now, what does a letter look like? In your booklet on page 12, 13, 14, and 15, that many pages? Wow. I think it starts at page 13, actually. 14 and 15, there's 5 different answers for you. Can you have a look and select model answer A, B, C, or D? Which one looks the most like a letter? Which one has the most appropriate format? Yeah. Have a look, type it into the chat box in a minute. I'm very pleasantly surprised, or not surprised, I'm very happy to see lots of letter C coming in. Good. So indeed, model answer A is not really how we write. It looks a little bit more like an essay, right? Because first, secondly, finally, that's not what I expect to see in a letter, so no. Model answer B, dear sir or madam, that looks quite nice, but then as you can see, every sentence is headed by a bullet point, like in a PowerPoint presentation. This is not how you write your letter. So B, please say no to answer B, because those little circles at the beginning of every letter, that's not what you do in a letter. That's what you do in a slide when you have a PowerPoint presentation. So no, model answer B is incorrect as well, inappropriate format. Model answer C, now that's nice. That starts with dear sir or madam. Great, then we have got a sentence, why we are writing. There's 3 paragraphs, probably addressing the 3 bullet points. Yours sincerely, and a name. That really looks like a letter. It's got an opening and a closing and the information in the middle. So model answer C looks appropriate to me. Yeah. Model answer D, we've got a little bit of a problem again, because we have got a beautiful opening, but then we go into headings. We don't write headings in a letter. Yeah? So I would say no, don't go for D. The correct answer is C. Yeah. Ali, yes, you can use I am instead of I'm. That is fine, because that's how we write. In your writing task 2, I would avoid it. In your writing task 1, it's a letter. That's a little bit of a different genre. Yeah. So that is all right. Vanessa, have a look at A, because it looks a little bit more like an essay. I think C should be the correct answer. So well done if you selected that for me. Yeah. Now, why is this so important? Because if the format is not appropriate, it limits your band score in task achievement. Yeah. So my question for you is, what's the highest band score you can get for task achievement if the format is not appropriate? Band score 4, 5, 6, or 7? Somebody just wrote 5. Adam, that's German. Well done, good spelling. Band score 5, let's see then if that is correct. What's coming out? What's your maximum band score? Yes. So if you have inappropriate format, I don't look any further for task achievement. I don't look for purpose. I don't look any further for what else you've done, because I have to stop you at a band score 5 in task achievement. Now imagine you've got beautiful language, great grammar in there, cohesion and coherence, but your format looks like you're writing an essay. Yeah, so you've got 7, 7, 7, and your task achievement band score 5. That really brings your scores down, which is something. It's such a shame. It's not necessary. So please remember what a letter looks like in English. Yeah? We need to write a closing sentence. Yes, Parth. We're going to talk about that in a minute. Yeah? I'm going to move you on to opening and closing sentences, actually, after this, I think. Let me catch up with what we are doing. Yes. So let's have a look then. Wrong format, Mohammed. You can get a higher than a band score 5 for your grammar maybe and your vocab, but not for task achievement. So if you put them all together, you can drop your score. You could even have a 9 at them for your language, for your vocabulary, but your task achievement column, that separate score would be a 5. So let's say you've got a 5 and 3 9s, 27 plus 5 is 32 divided by 4, brings your whole band score down to an 8, which is such a shame. It's not necessary. Virginia, good question. Must paragraphs be indented? It's your choice. You can leave a space yet between those lines. You can indent, you can have a blank line and an indent. It doesn't really matter. The examiner is quite flexible as long as you're showing me that you're trying to make a new paragraph. So you do what you like to do. I think indenting is quite old-fashioned nowadays. Personally, as a teacher, I prefer a blank line because it means if there's a mistake, you can always cross a word out and scribble that in the blank line and put an arrow in the right direction. Yeah. Good. So let's continue with this formal letter that we're looking at about the librarian. So quick question for you, an appropriate opening for this task and an appropriate closing sentence for this task. How do you sign on? How do you sign off? Yeah, so as an unfamiliar person, what sort of language could you use? Type it in to the chat box if you don't mind. Path, a 6.5 is overall. Yeah, so you cannot get 0.5 scores for the individual criterias, but overall for your writing task 1, you could get a 6.5. Got 5 for task achievement, a 6 for cohesion and coherence, a 6 for lexis, and a 5 for grammar. Comes out as a 6.5 for writing task 1. Yours faithfully, nice one. Yours sincerely, yours truly. Yeah, do so, madam. We often use yours faithfully because we don't know that person. But I think that is also changing a little bit. You can use yours truly, yours faithfully, yours sincerely. It is becoming more acceptable that we can mix them nowadays. But yeah, don't say cheers, bye-bye. Yeah, an opening, dear madam, dear sir, sir or madam. Yeah, dear Mr. Smith, completely fine. Good, dear Mr. Adam, Virginia, comma. After Mr. Adam, we get that comma. Jesu Toro Momi. Oh gosh, such long names in Nigeria. Can you put a comma behind dear sir or madam? Kind regards, Syed, is actually seen as more informal. That would be more for your informal letter, what we use in emails as well. So indeed, Virginia, yours faithfully, comma, lovely. Yeah. Good. So what have I got to show you here then? Ta-da-da-da. Oh, no answers, because I read them out to you. Yeah, they're also in your booklet on page 17, that formal and informal language. Yes, a comma after sir or madam, please. Titi Lope, semi-formal letters. Now, very interesting. We just had a discussion in the office about this today. Most letters you get in the IELTS are formal or informal, but Australia always insists on talking about semi-formal as well. Now, we have not seen a lot of semi-formal letters, and the opinion we have in the office here with IDP is when something is semi-formal, I would sort of stick to more formal language than informal language. So for us, semi-formal is very, very similar to that formal letter writing, but you might have a name, you might use some different ideas, but Bukola, there's not a lot of semi-formal examples out there actually. Yeah, so very interesting. We've asked this question to Australia today and we're waiting for an answer. So go with formal language if something feels semi-formal, just to be safe. Yeah. Good. I'm going to move you on to purpose, as you can see. Now, again, I think it's important for you to take note here. Maybe scribble this down in your booklet while you listen to me. We talked about the purpose. So you open your letter with dear sir or madam, and then directly you want to write down why you are writing. Yeah. Are you asking for information? Do you want suggestions? Are you complaining? I'm writing this letter to complain, for example, or I'm writing in connection with an issue I experienced last week in a hotel where I booked a meeting room. Yeah. So that purpose is very important. In a formal letter, you get directly onto I'm writing to. If you write an informal letter or a semi-formal letter, then you might actually start with a sentence, which I would call, it's more like a nicety. Hey, dear Ayo, how are you doing? Long time no see. Hope you're well and your family too. And then you write your purpose. So in an informal letter, you would do a little bit of greetings. How are you going? Long time since we met last, before you state why you are writing. Mia, you don't need to introduce yourself. You don't really do that in a letter in English. You write why you are writing, you write your story, and at the end you put your name. You're not writing, hi, I'm Anna, I've got a problem. We wouldn't really do that in letter writing in an English culture. Which of the bullet points would be our purpose of statement? Well, this is where you need to have a look at your bullet points. It's often the first one, which is describe what problem you have. Or let's have a look at an example later, Morteza, because I don't have an example here in front of me. I've got a screen like you have. Yes, so hold that question for me. Good. So purpose, very important. Informal, a little bit of a chatty thing, and then you go into it. Formal, you straight go into why you are writing. Yeah? And here in the next slide, I'm going to give you some sentences. They are also in your booklet on page 18. In the booklet you've downloaded from your Dropbox. Yeah. So have a look. On your own, decide, is this good for a formal letter or would this be useful for an informal letter? I'm going to let you read. Yeah, so again, we're indeed talking about formal versus informal, because with a semi-formal letter, we would go more towards that formal approach. So have a look, check your answers. This is the answer key. Check it and write it in your booklet on page 18. Great. So what you can see, for example, in that first sentence, it was great seeing you last week. This is after your opening. I'd say, hey, Ayo, it was great seeing you last week. And I finally have got time to send you all the information about the hotels in Sydney. So this is your first sentence before you start to introduce the purpose of that letter in informal writing. And that's the same with, it's been ages since I saw you last. Yeah? Well, as in a formal letter, we go straight in, dear sir or madam, I'm writing in regards to. Now, my suggestion here is that you practice, that you remember how to use two of these openings, two for formal, two for informal, and practice with using those appropriately, because you don't need all these different ideas. You just want two ideas that you can choose from to use in your exam. Yeah, so like, okay, I feel like this, write it like that. So don't worry, you don't need to remember all of them. Pick the ones that you can easily remember, and particularly look at those prepositions, writing in connection, writing in regards to. It's really important that you don't get those wrong. Yeah? Good. Now again, with that purpose, it's a really important criteria if you want a good Ben score in task achievement. It's a game stopper, because if your purpose is not clearly explained, I stop you in task achievement at a certain Ben score again. Very easy for me, for the examiner, not so good for you. So again, can you type in what Ben score I stop you at? Have a look at page 9 if you need to. Oh, Ben score 5 or Ben score 4? Right. I think I might have to disappoint you, some of you today. I want a 7, Ali. I think lots of us want a 7. But if you forget to clearly write your purpose, you're not going to get your 7. If you don't write your purpose, actually, you're going to be stopped for the Ben score 4 in task achievement. That means you could still have a 6 for Lexis, a 6 for grammar, and maybe even a 6 for cohesion and coherence. But that 1 4 does bring your total Ben score down. We don't need it. So please remember to always have the layout of a letter. State your purpose directly after you've opened your letter, because those can really stop you from getting a higher Ben score for task achievement. So yeah, 4, sorry. Yeah. Now, some questions that I think might be useful for you to keep in mind when you start writing that letter. First of all, read it carefully and find, who are you writing to? Is it a friend? Is it a manager? Is it a librarian? Is it, I don't know, a director of a school? Circle that word, because that impacts what sort of opening you're going to use. If it's someone you don't know, your opening needs to be formal. Yeah? Then very carefully look at the detail in the bullet points and find out what you need to do. Are you complaining? Are you requesting? Are you giving advice? What's the purpose? Because straight after your opening, you're going into that purpose. And then, of course, if you can paraphrase some words that we have used in your question, what you need to do, that shows me your own language already. So for a higher Ben score, you want to show me that range and variety. So think about if you can paraphrase anything. Said, is it a good idea to start the letter with a passive sentence? I think that's not very natural. A passive is normally used in a report or in a newspaper article on a process, not so much in letter writing. So I would say keep it natural and authentic. Yeah? Anna, we have not recorded this session. Yeah, so you'll have to join us again if you want to see it again. Sorry. Good. So here are your 4 questions that you need to think of. And then I'm going to move you on to the bullet points because somebody was asking about bullet points before. Ali Reza? No, I can't remember. Oh, Ali Anil. Here we go. Let's go and look at it. Any questions? Ask me after we've talked about these bullet points. I can't see what's coming. So, okay. So your 3 bullet points. Every letter has 3 little dots. They state what you need to do. Now, if you don't cover all these points that you're requested to do, again, what would be the maximum band score the examiner can give you for task achievement? Four, 5, lots of things coming through. Okay. Good. I found my right page back. Here we go. I think you're all going in the right direction. Okay. Let's have a look then what the answer is. But I might have to disappoint a few of you again. The maximum band score, if you do not cover all the bullet points, would be a band score 4 for task achievement. So it is really important that you address them. A band score 5 presents them, but they're not adequately covered. So you might talk more about one and less about the other. In a band score 6, you talk about them, but something might be inappropriate or completely irrelevant. For band score 7, you clearly need to present all your bullet points, and they also need to be extended to a certain extent. But of course, they can be more extended because otherwise that would be an 8 or a 9. Yes, it's really important that we talk about all bullet points. So let's have a look then at an example again. The librarian. Yeah, so you've got your 3 bullet points here. Write a letter to the librarian. In your letter, 1, describe what you like about the library. 2, say what you don't like. 3, make suggestions for improvements. Now, Ali, what would be your purpose of the letter here? What is the aim of this letter? Because the aim here is really to make suggestions. So what you want to think about when you look at the bullet points, indeed, is about that functional language. We have lots of functional language. We have functional language of greetings, functional language of giving advice, of making suggestions, of complaining. And for your writing task 1, you really need to have the language to make suggestions, to complain, to request, to give advice. So that sort of language you want to practice before you go to the exam. So indeed, so here your purpose is in the 3rd bullet point. Yeah, giving advice or recommendations. At least, yeah, that's actually what you are doing. Yeah? And I would say you can probably write here 3 separate paragraphs, 1 paragraph for each bullet point, because you can talk about 2 things that you like, you can talk about 2 things that you don't like, and then very carefully, Kahina, it's not make a suggestion, go and look at the prompt again. Is there a magic S somewhere? Make suggestions. So you need to give me at least 2 suggestions. That's why I'm actually saying talk about 2 things that you like, talk about 2 things that you don't like, and then make 2 suggestions. So your paragraphs are sort of similar in length. Yeah, so really carefully take your pencil and highlight. Ali, yes, 2 would suffice because suggestions is more than 1. Could be 2, could be 3. Think about your 150 words and the time you have as well. Yeah, so 2 is completely fine if you want to write about 2 suggestions. Yeah. Now, I think we've talked about this already. What do you need to write in the body of your letter? Those 3 bullet points. So a way of planning this before you start writing could be something like this. Very quickly write down what you like, idea A, idea B, what you don't like, A, B, and suggestions for improvement. And here you can start to play with your language as well. Yeah. Another word for like could be what you're keen on. Yeah, what you prefer, what you're fond of in the library. So you can put some language in here as well while you're thinking about what you're going to write. Because don't start writing directly. Take a minute or two to read the question, find those magic S's and N's and all. Start thinking and planning some of your ideas and then get on with it. Yeah. Good. What's the next question I have? I have no idea what we're getting. Ta-da-da. Oh, here we go. This is a different question. And what do you need to write about here? And what sort of functional language do you need to have for this letter? Type it in the chat box. It's indeed a formal letter because you're writing to the accommodation officer, and we assume that that's not your formal language. And actually, you are complaining, yeah, because there is a problem with another student and you want a solution. So, yes, accommodation difficulties, you're describing the situation, what the problem is. Problems, again, it's a magic S here, and you have to say why is it difficult to work. So this is actually secretly 4 bullet points here. See this little word? Yeah, so what are the problems? More than one. Why does it make it so difficult to work for you? And then you request a kind of accommodation that you would like them to organize for you. If only one problem is mentioned, Mortez, a very good question. You are not fully addressing the prompt. And if you fully address the prompt and the bullet point, if you don't do that, I'm just going to look at page 9 of the bent descriptors, you're probably limiting yourself again to a bent score, oh, I can't give that away, maybe a bent score 4 or 5 again. Yeah, so you really limit your score in task achievement. This is why it's so important that you look for the N's, the O's, and the plural S's. So you need to address 4 points in this question. And here's an answer, an example that you can have a look at how it's been done. And you've got 2 body paragraphs here. Virginia, I would say it's the easiest, but you don't need to follow the prompt. Do what you think is most logical, but please always start with the context. What's the issue? What's the problem? Why are you writing? Mohammed, I don't think you have to say how serious that problem is, but it is a problem. There's several problems in your case here, right? So it could be a serious problem, or you just feel upset by something. Don't worry too much about the difficulty level of problems. Counting your words, like I've said before, count how many words in one sentence, and then if that's 10, you need 15 to 17 sentences. One problem, Shaki, it means that you need to write about at least one problem. So that's fine. If you write about 2, that's not an issue. Yeah, but if it asks for 2 and you write about 1, we're not sure if you understand what the plural S means, because indirectly, remember, we're testing your language, your grammar as well. I have no idea, Mohammed, so quickly what score this is, but I think it was scored around a band score 9. I don't have the answer here of the total bent score, but it's given to us by the head examiners in Melbourne. So it's a model answer to show us what you can There is an answer, Abdullahi. This is why I would be very grateful if you would arrange for me to move to a private room starting the spring term. Yeah, so they are very short about it, but they are saying what they want, a private room, no more sharing with my med friend. Yeah. Yes, mixing Chisom or Ali, 2 bullet points in 1 paragraph is okay because as you can see here, it looks really well balanced. Otherwise, you get 2 very short paragraphs and 1 longer. So it's very clear. And I can see this would be a Ben score 9 because I had lots of nice collocations. It's got very good words in there like preventing, concentrating, disturbing. Yeah, would arrange for me to move to. So there's lots of lovely language, get-togethers. That's a nice way as well to talk about it. I'm often very exhausted instead of I'm often very tired. Yeah? Well, you could, Mia, put that in a separate paragraph, but it just looks a bit funny because it's 1 sentence. It's not really a paragraph, right? Yeah. Contraction, you could use I'm writing. It's not a big deal because it is very natural. But what you will see is that we often don't use it in formal letters. It's got to do with being more explicit. I cannot, I can't. So if it's formal, don't use contractions too much. If it's informal, it's not a problem at all. Good, so this is a nice model answer. There's some more in your booklet, I think, on page 30, and there is a Ben score 7 on page 30. Okay, I'm trying to move you away from this slide, but it doesn't want to. Good, here we go. This was that 4th bullet point in task achievement, style and tone, the level of formality. Is it appropriate to who you are writing to? Yeah, that is really informed by who you're writing to, a colleague or a friend or a manager, for example. Now, if this is not correct, if you're having inappropriate tone, for example, there is an issue again. Your task achievement will drop in Ben's score. So have a look at page 9 and let me know what's the highest score for task achievement if you don't maintain an appropriate tone. I suppose it's 4 again. I quite like that. And somebody else comes up with a 6. Interestingly, look at my question because I'm not asking if you have inappropriate tone. You don't maintain it. So you have a little bit of appropriate tone and then you change to something that's not appropriate. So Hussein, I think you've got the right answer there. Your tone, if it's variable and sometimes appropriate and sometimes not, that means that the maximum Ben score is. If it's completely inappropriate, it would be a Ben score 4. But what I'm seeing here, you don't maintain it means that you have started well maybe and then shifted. So you're inconsistent and that is not so good. So that would be Ben score 5. 6 says some inconsistencies, but overall okay. And a 7, it is consistent and appropriate. Yes, if you really want to give yourself a good chance, select what is appropriate and select your vocabulary and grammar according to who you're writing to. To bring to your notice about the problems. Well, I wouldn't say I would like to bring to your notice about the problem. Yeah? You would bring to someone's notice the issues you are facing in your accommodation. So think about the right grammatical. But to bring to someone's notice is fine. Yeah, but make sure that you practice with 1 or 2 different staff in that letter, Mohammed, that you use that and practice. Think of the exam about the preposition. You just know it. You just write it down. Good. Going back to my slide, I think my most important message is number 2. Have a look what word is missing there. Oh, there's something missing in 1 as well. It depends on who you are writing to, indeed. So that's what you always need to find as quickly as you can, because it impacts what language you're going to use. And don't mix formal and informal, because that limits you to a band score 5. Yeah? So decide what is most appropriate. Good. So to write, we have different expressions. To apologize, we can do it formally or informally. To ask for information, we can do it formally or informally. So I'm going to ask you to go to page 25 and 26 in your booklet, and you see something like this. And I think there's another page. See, we have called it formal neutral because semi-formal goes a little bit with that. So what I like you to do is have a read through that and then decide, is the way of expressing yourself formal or informal, and put a tick in the right box. So page 25 and 26 in your booklet has those different functions, and you need to decide which expression is formal and which one is informal. Yes, I'm going to leave you to think about this for a minute or two, and then I'm back. Expressions for apologizing, asking for information, and thanking someone for doing something for you. So when you look at page 25, you can look at the screen and you can put the dots in the right place, or you can check what you've done. Yeah, so sorry to hear about it. It's quite informal. Unfortunately, is much more of a formal approach. Now, I'm not going to say you need to remember all these, but you might want to remember one formal way and one informal way of apologizing or asking for information, or, for example, to thank someone. So when you sit at the exam, you don't have to think of, oh my God, what language can I use? No, this should be an easy starter of your sentence. And the rest of the idea, that's where you need to save your brain for during the exam. That's what you need to start writing down. So remembering chunks of language is very useful with the functions, but the language that comes after, that's what you need to think about at the exam, because we can't guess what we're going to have to write because we don't know the question. Yeah, can I move you on to page 26 so you can check your answers there? I'm sincerely sorry about. I would probably say we don't say I'm sincerely sorry about. I'm very sorry about, but that's again more informal. Please accept my apologies. Yeah, you could say that. Good, I'm going to move you on. Page 26. Here are more bullet points and answers for you. Complaining, making suggestions, expressing satisfaction, and general expressions. Now, I don't know who has written that. It's Russian script, and I can't read names in Russian. Is it possible to get an overall 7.5 in writing? Because in my country, nobody achieved this. I don't think that is true. I don't think you have all the scores in Russia available to you. And yes, there are 9s. Yes, there are 8s. But to be an 8 or a 9, your English needs to be very close to non-native. To native speaker, sorry. And the 9 and an 8, they don't have a huge difference. It could just be a few mistakes or slips too many that drops you back from a 9 to an 8. But yes, there are 9s available, and there are 9s being scored by candidates who've got the language available. Yeah. Hey guys, in an informal letter, well, if you write to a group of people, yeah, but I would probably just say, hey, Io, or hey, Anna, because often you're writing to one friend. A condolence topic to be asked. You mean a letter of condolence when somebody has passed away? I don't think we would ask you in IELTS to write that. That's very sensitive, isn't it? Yeah, I'd like to propose is one of these things that we do use a contraction with. But ideally, particularly in writing task 2, you stay away from it. I am is something we do use a contraction with as well. Yeah, but it's ideally all the others do not and cannot. You move away from those. You write them in full. I hope that helps you a bit, but that's a very good question. Yeah, you can also say, to be on the safe side, I would like to propose. Yeah, the word propose, Virginia, that is much more formal than you would say to your friends. You would say, I think we should. I suggest, why don't we? Yeah. Normally, a letter is to one friend. Because I'm going to move you away from this because I bet you have checked your formal or informal language here. One more task. Somebody said at the end, how am I going to end this writing? What is the sentence I use before I say best regards or maybe best wishes? Well, here are some sentences that you write before you sign off. And again, for you, the task, if you look at page 27, to decide, are these concluding sentences formal or informal? Now, Amma, I don't think you often write in IELTS a letter to two friends, but you can. Hi, guys, would be appropriate. Yeah. Or hi, Anna and Ayo, whatever you want to do. This is not really where you score your band score 7 or 8. It's really in the language that you use in your bodies. Yeah, but if it's two friends, hi, guys, would be fine. Oh, look at that. Lots of informal. You're typing very fast, Shamil. Excellent. Look at that. Oh, that's easy, Victor. I like that choice. IF, IF, IF. That makes it a bit easier to do, right? So, good. Compare your answers with my answers. Why they are yellow, I've got no clue. Apologies for that. But this is how it shows up today. What you see here in the informal writing is that we often drop the pronoun hope to hear from you soon instead of saying I hope to hear from you soon. Yeah, see you next weekend. You would say I see you next weekend, but in informal you drop that pronoun. So this is really natural use of language. I look forward to hearing from you shortly. I look forward to hearing from you at your earliest convenience, or whatever ending you want to give that sentence. Yes, so again, select two formal ones, two informal ones that you're going to practice with so you know how to use them. I don't think you need to practice all of them. Murad, yes, hope to hear from you soon because I have dropped the pronoun. That makes it informal. Yeah. Now, also on page 27, be aware of inappropriate language use. If you don't write a concluding sentence, you're probably not really following the format, Mortreza, of a letter. You always write what you expect or what you hope will happen or thanking for the attention before you sign off with kind regards and then your name. Yeah, particularly if you want something, I look forward to hearing from you with a positive outcome shortly, for example. I trust the situation will be resolved shortly. That is really stating again that you expect them to do something quickly, what you've asked before. So I think it's an important sentence to add in. It feels incomplete if you don't do that. Now, language here in this box at the bottom, which is not very clear, but it's on page 27. Please don't make threats. Don't use swear words and don't use flattery like, oh, my esteemed colleague with your beautiful name. Yeah, no, keep it simple and sophisticated. Yeah, so that's what you need to do. Avoid language in that box. The other language I like you to avoid is regional or local English. Ali, I'm not going to say what a swear word is. Swear words are bad words that you maybe shout at people you're angry with in a shop or drivers on the road in Dubai. Yeah, so not words that you normally use when you're upset. Don't use things like dear ma or dear mum sir, because that is local English that is not really accepted as international English in the exam. Yeah? Yes, Musam, if you miss something, just write an arrow, write the sentence somewhere else, write it on the side of the paper and show me the arrow where it's supposed to be. That is completely fine. You can write it at the bottom, you have a little asterisk, a little star, put the star in the middle of the sentence, and I know that bit of information needs to go in the middle of your sentence. That happens, that is fine. Yeah, we do everything we can to make sure that we are able to give you the best score as possible in that way. And then we all forget or make mistakes. So that's a very good way of correcting. Yeah? So don't use this language on page 27. That's not appropriate. Keep it friendly and polite. Yeah? Good. I think I've got a quick summary here for you. The 3 rules of writing. Very important that you state your purpose. Why are you writing? Buzz out, you can, but not necessary. You could do it in an informal letter if you need another 10 words. Yeah, no issue. Good. Cover all the bullet points fully. So check for plural S's and end. And as well, make sure that your tone is appropriate throughout your piece of writing. So don't mix between formal and informal. Now, before you write, I've already said that I think it's really important that you think. Thinking is probably the missing skill that we don't really teach in the classroom, but think about how you're going to approach this. What are you going to do? So take a minute or two to read the prompts, circle what you need to do, what's the situation, who you're going to write to, and what's the content you need. Yeah, so I would really say, check, who are you writing to? Somebody you know or somebody unknown? Then think about what sort of opening is appropriate when you don't know a person. Yeah? What sort of closing is appropriate when you don't know a person? And then also, how can you paraphrase the prompts? What's the purpose? And how can I organize it so my paragraphs overall look all right and a little bit similar in length? So ideally, you can use 1 bullet point for 1 paragraph if that works. Ali, I can't remember the 3rd one. Yeah, it was about your purpose. Oh, fully covering the bullet points. That was the 3rd one on that slide. So here are your questions that I want you to take with you when you go to the exam. And add to number 2, what closing is appropriate to? So I think that's a good way to think about it, and that might help you. Good. Let's see then what is next. Here's a little planning framework for you, and this is also on page 22 in your booklet. So as you can see, you might want to call it 5 paragraphs. I find it sounds a bit funny, but yeah, your introduction paragraph with dear sir or madam, comma, I'm writing with regards to da-da-da-da, your purpose, and then bullet point 1. Introduce what you're going to talk about. Is there a problem or is that the solution? Bullet point 2, maybe you're describing your situation, and then bullet point 2, you're stating what the problem is with your roommate. And then bullet point 3, you might suggest solutions that you are happy with. Then your concluding sentence, I look forward to hearing from you with a positive outcome shortly. And then you sign it off at the end with an appropriate closing, comma, and your name. Yeah, a topic sentence, Olienka, that introduces what you're going to talk about in that paragraph. Yeah, Mr. Smith, comma, indeed. Yeah, dear John, comma. Page 28 has a lovely comma as well, but it has a naughty slash between sir and madam. We don't want that. Good. So again, there's a checklist for you that you can keep in mind before you hand things in. Is my introduction paraphrased? Is the purpose clear? Do I cover all the bullet points? Everything we've talked about today. So this is really good for you to check when you practice. Yeah, in the exam, you maybe don't have so much time to think about this, but do check your common errors. You know what you often do wrong. For example, when I type, I often forget the "a" after your email, your message. So I always go back, whatever I do, to check in my emails, because I know I just forget when I type too quickly. That planning checklist is on page 22, and your writing task 1 checklist, I'm just having a look where that is. Yes, page 34 in your booklet. So that is in your booklet as well. Yeah. So if you haven't downloaded that booklet, please do so afterwards. Go back to that email and read through it, because it summarizes everything we spoke about today. Yeah? Good. Put a comma after "Dear David." I think, Richard, that's very important. Capital Dear, capital David, comma, and then start your letter to your friend. Yeah? Good. I'm going to see what you remember of the webinar. I've helped you a little bit with the gap fill. I've given you the first letter. So this is really the key message for me, and I hope that you remember what I said. Nadia, you've nailed it there. You need to understand the format. What does a letter look like? You have to write, Teresa, a clear purpose. Yes, indeed. And then you have to cover the what? What do I need to cover fully? Bullet points. Lovely. Yes, so you really need to check what's in those bullet points. 3 or 4 things you often have to do. Then you have to write in an appropriate style. Girish, Rabia, well done. So think, if it's a formal letter to someone I don't know, what sort of language should I use for my opening, my closure, my purpose, and within the paragraphs. Let's go out. You don't say that. I would suggest we meet. Might be a better sentence. Yeah. So keep that consistent. Then you need to use appropriate tone and plan, write, and check. Yeah, so plan what you're going to do before you write. Write down a few ideas, maybe some useful language, write it, and at the end, please take a minute or 2 to quickly check your most common spelling and grammar errors. Could be a subject-verb agreement. It could be a word that you always misspell. So check that before you hand it in, because too many grammar mistakes or punctuation errors could actually impact your score negatively. Yes, Joelle, you get scratch paper to plan it. You can also write on the question booklet. Yeah, please do write your final answer as quickly as possible. Start with that on the question paper. Don't write a draft in the exam. You have no time to do that. Writing the closing kahila is at the end of your piece of writing. And in your booklet, you find lots of sample answers. There is a sample answer, for example, on page 30, yeah, which is band score 7, so you can see where they have done that at the end. Yes, CD IELTS, you also get scratch paper and scrap paper, and a pencil. How exciting is that? You can also take notes, Noman, on the screen, just in a separate note function when you write. Yeah? Good. So I think I've given you all the information that you need. So let's quickly summarize that today. Passive in a formal letter, if it is natural, Teresa, we don't use it very often in a letter. We use it more in a report, but if it's appropriate and fits in the context, not an issue. You want to write on the lines, because that does make it look like a letter. I don't really know what you mean, Olakayoda, with writing in the middle of the line. Just start in the margin and keep going to the right side. Key advice. Good. So analyze those bullet points. There might be a sneaky end or plural S. There we go, plural S. Make sure that you find the purpose and state that very clearly. Why are you writing? Do you want a solution, suggestion? Do you want to give me advice? Letters need paragraphs. They're very important for your writing. So think about what we talked about. Indenting or a blank line. Yeah, politely round off. I look forward to hearing from you. All the best. Speak soon. Kind regards. And what else have we got? Oh, we've got more. Here we go. Formal or informal style. We spoke about it. Keep it consistent. Don't mix it. And again, paraphrasing your language. If you speak about a problem, you could speak in the next sentence about an issue, for example. Just erase it, and if you can't erase it because it's not working, just draw a line through it, Glenda. That is completely fine. Cross it out. It's clear that you don't want me to look at it. Start the letter as shown in the question, dear sir or madam, or dear plus name. Don't include an address, not necessary at all. And then the last one, of course, you need to end your letter in an appropriate way. Looking again at, was it formal or informal? Good. No Kahinder, no address. No, we don't want an address. Waste of time. You're not assessed on that. That's not where your Ben score 7 or 8 comes from. So please do not waste your time on that. Yeah. Good. Lots of advice for you here. And let me know if you have any further questions, because I think I sort of got to the end of my slideshow with you. So any questions, type them in. I'm happy that that was useful, Ali. That's always good to hear. Idioms, Reza, yes, but it's not something we use so much. It's more idiomatic language. You could put an idiom in, like, don't stay in this hotel, are you? Because it costs you an arm and a leg. But again, it needs to be appropriate. No, you can't send me a letter and I check it. There is, however, I'm moving away from this slide now because I think you have seen both now. Let me go to this. There is, however, a way that you can do a mock exam with IDP, and that is here. So you would go to the IDP IELTS.me website and you will look for IELTS Writing Assist. The Writing Assist is a paid service from IDP, and you will get your general training exam or academic, whatever you request. We ask you to do this at home and write under exam conditions. No telephone, no dictionary, nothing, 60 minutes. And then you scan it or take a photo of it and send it back to us at IDP. We've got lots of ex-writing examiners because, as you probably know, writing is no longer marked here. It's marked in the UK, Australia, and Canada. And then we mark your piece of writing and we give you some advice on how to improve, and we tell you what the issues are. We're not giving you a Ben score. However, looking at the language you use and you go to page 9 in your booklet, you can guess what Ben score it represents. The best thing about it is you get feedback on which websites or which books to go to improve the issue we have identified in your writing. Yeah, so that's Writing Assist, which you can find on idpielts.me. It is not for free, unfortunately, because we ex-writing examiners are still doing that. Yeah, it's a paid service. However, some IDP centers offer it for free when you sign up for your exam with IDP. It varies in prices, Abdullahi. It might be $30 in Egypt. It might be $50 in Dubai. It really depends on salaries and the price of the tests in those countries as well. Materials you can find on the website. Go to free practice test. You can find some writing tests and sample answers as well. Or you can write all your answers in capital letters or uppercase, but we do not recommend that so much. But a good question. Yeah. Good. The same booklet. Are we using the same booklet tomorrow? Let me look at the front of the booklet. I think this is writing task 1. No, tomorrow we are using writing task 2 booklet, and that link is also already in the email, I think, I sent you. Is that correct? Yeah, so go back to that email if you have registered for that, and you can download it there. A masterclass on speaking, Olinka, not at the moment, would be nice. Put it in your feedback, or will as well. It would be great to do one. Maybe in the future. Request it. Anna, you already registered. Lovely. I'll see you back tomorrow evening. Same time indeed. Write your name, Mohammed, at the end of your letter. And yes, you can leave now. I think we all want to go home, get some dinner or get some food and have a rest. And we see you back hopefully tomorrow evening at 7 o'clock. You're very welcome, team. Thank you for being so active. I really enjoyed your interactions. Thank you for your time. And no listening session plans just yet, Samuel, but who knows, we passed on your request. Thank you so much for your hard work, and all the best with your practicing, and go for it if you have your test soon. And if you're interested tomorrow in writing task 2, I see you there. Have a good evening or good afternoon.